The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of BeAuSm. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the BeAuSm Podcast. We were just sitting here, Mark and I, my esteemed co-host of the podcast. It's been MIA for a while. We were just talking that the podcast we haven't had an episode since September that's been released. And Mark, I don't think you've been here since, you weren't here for the palette.
No,
so it's August.
Yeah, it's been August.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be
kept
back.
your chair warm. I think people might have thought, where'd Mark go? But we've been keeping you under wraps the last couple months, it seems like.
I've been writing. You know, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's great to be back in the studio.
Well, welcome back. Awesome. Yeah, let's dig right in because just me and you, no guests. We're guests of each other. So let's talk about the book. Let's get right into it. I think can we say the dates? I'm going to actually let you drive this thing because I know that I'm going to say things that I shouldn't, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to get in trouble.
There's no getting in trouble with
I don't
me
want to say
anymore.
anything like March 13th, 2025. I don't want to do that.
No, March 13th. I was born on the 13th. It's my birthday. I've already published one book on my birthday, and that's the date I'm willing to say publicly. Yeah, absolutely. March 13th, 2025. I've been working real hard on the book, and I'd say it's about 80%. The first draft is 80 to 90% done, and then I'll probably have the second draft done by the middle of December, and by the end of December, I'll be in good shape. Middle of January, probably. Yeah.
Well, this is, and I have March 13th is a birthday for me too. My second birthday, or third birthday, or fourth birthday, depending on how you gauge how close to death I've come in previous instances of electrocution and other things. But March 13th was the day that I almost choked to death, and so that's I consider that kind of a birthday for myself too, and it's a special day. And the number 13 is very special. Before we get into the book, I have to say, and I've said this 100 times, but I can't say it enough. It is amazing how our paths have never crossed in our lives. Being Massachusetts born and bred, close to the same age. You went to Xavier, and I had friends in that age group. As we talk, you graduated with some of my friends, the Martinettis. You went to high school with.
Yep.
Never knew who Mark Resnick was. Met completely inadvertently on your publishing of your first book because it was about your father with Alzheimer's. That my father had dementia, and the timing of all of that, and then lo and behold, we don't connect completely, and you're on a personal friend of mine, David Cook's podcast in August of 2022. Was it 2022?
Probably.
Yeah, it was 2022.
Yeah, that's when the book came out. Yeah,
August of 2022, and come to find out, you're his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And your birthday's on March 13th, and I had my own near death on March 13th. There are so many crazy connections to us that it took almost 50 years before we are. And as we talk, we still have these like aha moments of like, oh my God, that's me, or that's something I've done, or there's just so many many connections.
Doubt. Jesse Itzler, we both joined his program. I heard him speak at a keynote, Jesse Itzler, a few years ago, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool, and that's what prompted me to kind of get involved in his sort of coaching group networking program. How did you find him, and why did you get involved with his group?
Yeah, so it was COVID, and the chapter, one of the chapters I have to work on today is investing in yourself, Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and these other greats that I went to get professional development from, growth and learning, and COVID had hit, and I knew 2019, I'll backstep. in October 2019, I went to Georgia to go to the Night of Candles with Zach Brown Band for they have a private fundraiser at the Coca-Cola Theater or something. And I saw, we stayed in Waldorf Astoria, just outside of Atlanta. I mean, we did it was a nice trip. It was a special trip. And Spanx headquarters was right there.
Yeah.
And I really didn't even know what Spanx were. Like, I knew what they were, but I didn't know the backstory to Sarah Blakely. And but I was like, wow, what an amazing space and all this stuff. So I started to follow her on Instagram. And I actually sent her some coffee mugs because she does like the coffee mug, the weekly motivation with the coffee mug. She hasn't done the BeAuSm coffee mug yet. But as I was reading into her story, which is amazing, like she spent her last $5,000 and she was having these things made and shipped to her house, and literally like no debt, no borrowing of money, turned into a multi-billion-dollar brand that she just sold. I learned about Jesse Itzler, who, he got to start writing a rhyme for the New York Knicks, right? And he was just, he was someone that had ambition but didn't have the plan. And he started this marquee jet and, did $4 billion in business and sold it, and part owner Atlanta Hawks, Zico coconut water. I learned about all these different things that he was involved in. And
through her.
Yeah, through following her, I started to learn about him, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty fascinating human being. And he just seems like a normal guy, right? He just seems like he kind of seems like someone that you'd want to emulate as a father, as a businessman. Like, he seems to have it together. Like, he seems to have his relationship in order. He seems to have his work in order. He's at his kids' swim meets and doing all these things. So you just kind of look at him and it's like, wow, this guy's, he seems to have his stuff together. Now, granted, they got a couple $1 billion between the two of them, so they probably have a lot of people to help with pancakes on Sunday. But somewhere around, I guess, January or February, they launched the Build Your Life Resume openings. It might have even been December of 2019. And I was like, wow, that's cool. That seems like a good idea. But it was like $1,500. And it was all online. Like, spending $1,500 to go to Tony Robbins for a day, I could see that. Spending, Tom Hopkins sales mastery. You go down to Arizona. That's where he used to have it. You'd spend $2,500, but you'd be sitting in a room with 2,000 like-minded people. So just that piece of it is worth its value. I could not wrap my head around, how am I going to get value out of this online? Because I was zoomed out, right? It was just like, you knew you were going to go into this whole thing. And I don't know, one day I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to go to anything in person. I need to do something. Let me continue my growth. Let me join this thing. And I did. And to date, I was upset that it ended, because he doesn't do it anymore. He's got his, Running Man. He's for anybody that doesn't know who Jesse Itzler is today, he's got an equivalent of Everest hiking race, where you hike up the mountain and then you take the chairlift down. So you hike up numerous times to be the equivalent of the number of feet that you'd climb for Everest. He's got this event called Running Man. A lot of his life now is all about endurance running and events. But a very successful businessman, part owner of Atlanta Hawks. I just bought back Zico water, from my understanding. So, the coconut water. I sold to Coca-Cola. Now I believe they just bought that back. Oh. He bought a pickle company. Like, this is kind of the fascinating reasons why I was why I was interested in probably what got him. It was like, he thinks about simple things. Like, when you think about peanut butter and you're our age, like, the first thing that comes to mind is Jif. Choosy moms choose Jif, right? Like, there's just these catchy brands and everything. And so he's like, yeah, there's, so many billions of pickles that are eaten every year. There's 7 brands, and no one's like, oh, I can't wait to go get a jar of Vlasic pickles, right? Or whatever bread and butter, or whatever because I now go to the pickle aisle and I'm looking at these different brands of pickles. And so he's creating a pickle brand that he wants to make the brand that's recognized by everyone. And so, so I don't know. One day I just woke up and I just signed up, and I was like, wow. And then I started doing the live calls, and it was just like, he was calling people out in person, and there was almost 2,000 of us.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that was my professional development for 2020, which was a screwed up year.
Yeah.
So 2020, 2021. And then I think he closed it in 2022.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know it was. I know he has other coaching programs.
Yeah,
you got to pay big bucks. But
yeah. Well, that was the thing. He stopped this $1,500, $2,000 thing, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I don't know if he said it publicly, or if it was something that I got afterwards. But it was like, if this is a problem, we'll work with you. And you can pay monthly, or you can do whatever. And they actually gave me like 6 months. After they gave me like an extension of access when I didn't renew it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't renew it wasn't because it wasn't of value or anything. It was just I wanted to get back to in-person stuff. I wanted to get back to, digging in and seeing people again. So
yeah, I mean, I got everything I possibly could have gotten out of it.
It got us.
I was gonna say the $1,500 was well worth it.
Absolutely.
Because that's the point of the whole bringing up Jesse. Is that's that's really how we met.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Jesse.
Oh yeah, this wouldn't happen.
I mean, I suppose you still would have been listening to the podcast, but you had already tried to reach out to me before you heard me on the podcast.
Yeah, I bought 10 copies of your book.
Yeah, so it was a double whammy.
Yeah, but I think you made the announcement on the listserv the day that you released it, and I think I sent you a message. I think I went online to Amazon and bought 10 copies of the book.
Yeah,
and sent you a message and said, hey, just bought a bunch of copies of the book. I also see you do merchandise, and I was dealing with a little bit of a tumultuous merchandise situation. It was meant to be. Yeah, so thanks to Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, and we're 10 minutes away or a half hour away, really, but 10 miles away from each other, and we're both in the same group. And unlike you, you did a deep dive and who's in my area, who can I talk to?
Yeah.
I was just like, well, whatever. California, Easton, Mass, whatever, same thing.
Well, it was interesting was, like, I did a number of deep dives because I wanted to see who was in it.
Yeah.
Like, we had everybody from Governor Newsom in California to the CEO of Dude Wipes to, an up-and-coming podcast person to my guest that never made it that I told you about, that she had a rather interesting story. But it was just a little bit of everything. Jen Drummond, who was the first woman to climb the 7 second highest peaks, she was on the podcast. That was the interesting. That was probably the most interesting thing, was I opened up my podcast for anybody that wanted to be on it, and there was only a couple of takers.
Yeah.
I would have thought that there would have been more.
Me too. That was the type of group that would be all over that.
Jump all over it. Yeah. Because, I mean, that's one of the things I need to do is I need to actually be a guest on podcasts. We talked about this just before going live. And,
Well, before we finish up, Jesse, I mean, I would never say we're friends, the two of us. I mean, I've texted with him, and he was kind enough to write an endorsement for my book, so I'm forever grateful to him. And he was also bought the first 50 copies of 10 Days with Dad.
Yeah.
So I mean, the man is not. He doesn't do things for showmanship, and was all under the sly, and he wasn't looking for credit or anything. I didn't give him any. I mean, he wasn't looking for any credit, but I got a lot out of his program, and I just I learned some of the things of what he talked about: daily vitamins and Misogis, and and I implement those in my life every day. And in the book, I write about him too. So I give him huge props. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say he's my friend. I'll say he's my friend.
Yeah. Well,
Jesse,
I think if you saw him, we were just talking about this with Joe DeSena and the Spartan Race. I'm sure we'll dig into this. Like, they meet so many people. Like, we meet so many people, and I struggle. And so for you to walk up and be like, hey, you bought 50 of my books 4 years ago, and da-da-da-da-da. There probably is a trigger point at some point. But, does he have your phone number on speed dial?
Yeah.
He doesn't have mine, and that's okay, but I still consider him a friend. Yeah. Because a friend is, when you look at what a friend is as far as a definition, friend is somebody that improves your life and is someone that's there for you. And he was there for us, all of us. Yeah. And he made himself there for all of us, which was pretty cool. I hope to get to meet him someday, and I hope he buys 50 of our books. Yeah. Because that'd be cool. So we got to put him on the list of people to hit up. So I actually talked about the Misogi, which was interesting. shifting from one thing to the other with ADD here. I got to do the ASBO International in Nashville, which was a life experience. That was I've been trying to get on that stage, or preparing to get on that stage
back
for
up
10 years.
Do you want to explain what a misogi is, or?
Well, I was.
Oh, is that part? Okay, yeah.
You can do it if you want to define it.
No, I was like, how is he gonna do this?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna.
Is this part of the story?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
definitely.
So, 10 years ago, I got the Corporate Leadership Award, which was only given out twice in almost 100 years of the association's existence. And from that point on, I said, someday I'm going to be on the stage and speak to everybody. And every year, when the general session would end, 12 to 1,500 people. I mean, this is a big production. ASBO International is a big production. 1,200 to 1,500 people in attendance, a full crew of people. You have to do dry runs and audio checks. And you actually have somebody that does the audio check for you. So you don't even have to do the work. They go up and they walk every square inch and do all that stuff.
ASBO, tell them.
Association of School Business Officials. So it's all of the CFOs for public education in the world. And so when the general session would get done all these past 10 years and the room was empty, I would walk up on stage and I would imagine a packed house of people. And so I got that opportunity this year. The new executive director, Jim Rowan, who's a friend and a past executive director of Ohio ASBO that had me, and Kristen, who was their event person, reached out to me and said, hey, you want to do the open general session? I'm like, that's fantastic. And I got there, was at the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, and I get there and I got butterflies. I'm just nervous. The previous 9 years I was confident. It's empty, but I imagined there were a lot of people. But I had all these butterflies. I had nerves of just all sorts of stuff going on. And I saw Fred McConan from Equitable, who's a friend who wants to do something with us for road tour possibly in the spring. And so I'm talking to Fred, and he's talking about the importance of relationships, and I'm just kind of trying to sink it all in. And he says, hey, come to the session one of my people is doing. And I walk in, and right up front it says misogi. And this presenter is talking about his misogi. Yeah. And he, I don't think, was part of Jesse Itzler's anything, but this misogi is something that's been around forever, and it's challenging yourself to do something difficult that you wouldn't otherwise do, at least once a year, right? It's once a year.
It could be once a year. Or
I think that's
one done would be great.
Do one a year.
Yeah.
And so I immediately, I'm just captivated by this presentation. I'm going on stage in an hour, and you know how I am and how weird my brain works. So I run to my room, fire up the computer, and I put a slide, misogi, and I put the definition, and I shared with the audience that this was my misogi, for this year for speaking, and I went into detail with it. The only problem was I locked myself out of my room. I ran out. Oh, I got to my general session. I was dripping in sweat. I was
my God.
Because the Gaylord Opryland is massive. It's the largest hotel in the country, non-casino hotel in the country. It's massive. Yeah. And I had to go from one end to the other to do this talk. But yeah, that was the misogi. I hadn't seen misogi anywhere else until that morning. And when I was listening to him, I'm like, this is my professional development speaking misogi for the year. And the Spartan race was probably my physical misogi. So I actually did 2 this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unplanned on both. So
yeah, it's definitely, I talked about it in my talks as well. And it's a little bit hard to grasp in the sense, but really just push yourself to do something that's really outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
For some people it's starting a side hustle. Yeah. Or maybe it's that podcast you've always wanted to start, and you've been putting it off because it's going to be hard and difficult. Yeah. Sometimes it's physical.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what most people automatically gravitate to, which is physical. And I think doing something hard successfully physically, the appearance of success is a lot stronger than the appearance of doing something hard.
I'm going to disagree.
Well, you can, and I'd love to talk more about it, but like a podcast. You said, as a podcast, starting a podcast was hard. Like getting it started, going.
It's not hard to actually do the technical part of it.
Right. But
get the equipment or come to a room and start it. But like to plan it out and to actually have confidence and take that step and publish it.
Right.
For some people, that's like running 3 marathons. It's terrifying.
look, and I'll tell you, we get tens of thousands of downloads on each of the episodes and everything. I have not had a single person come to me and be like, episode 1 and 2, you had, people don't typically see, thankfully, like, and I don't want you to go listen to 1 and 2. They're terrible. They're awful. It's just me. I'm by myself. I'm under my peach tree. It was just having to get the confidence, like you said, that confidence piece. But people don't tend to see that because people don't tend to pay attention to something like this until you've made it. Like, go back and listen to Joe Rogan's first year. Like, that's what I used to do. I used to listen when I started. Like, you would get so discouraged if you listen to Joe Rogan today. But he's done like 2,500 episodes of podcasts, right? Like, go back to his.
Just for the record, I've never listened to one of his episodes.
Well, go listen to. Well,
I'm not a Joe Rogan fan. I'm not a fan.
So you don't need to be a fan.
Yeah.
But what you do need, the
point is
to be in the podcast world. Yeah. Like, I'm not a fan of a lot of podcasts I listen to, but I want to learn from the people that are the best in the business and see what they're doing that could be something that I might want to adapt or adopt, or something that I don't want to adapt or adopt to. Like, he's got a ton of ads, right? That's cool. I think he makes like $25,000 or $250,000 an episode now because of ad volume and everything else.
No, he's successful for sure.
I want to do ads at some point, but I want to make sure that they're the right ads. And how do you do that? And so, but when I started the podcast, I would be listening to these established podcasts and getting so discouraged. And finally, one day, I don't remember who told it to me, but they're like, why don't you go back and listen to when they were you? Like, listen to episode 1 and 2 and see what that's like. And so that's kind of like the thing that I think with the physical thing, like when I was going through this whole Spartan thing, people were like, oh my God, you look like you lost weight. Well, I lost almost 40 pounds. I gained a bit of it back thanks to torn tendon and steroids and other stuff. But people see that transformation, right? Yeah. They see the physical transfer. That's the only thing I'm trying to say is like, it's a lot easier to see you go through the uncomfortable piece of physical because people go, oh, you look like you lost weight. Oh, you can actually run. Oh, you're not passed out on the side of the road after you walked a mile. Like, right? They see that stuff. Where the mental stuff people don't see because it's mental jujitsu going on in your brain, not outside to the outside world.
I think that's the point of the misogi.
Yeah,
is it's your misogi. It's how you push yourself, physical or not. Like leaving your job to start to follow your dreams and pursue your side hustle is enormous. Or just leaving your job to go into another industry, another field could be your misogi. Writing a book is definitely a misogi. I mean, there's lots of different examples I pointed in my book, but it's just like physical is definitely easier for some people to wrap their heads around. Yeah,
I don't know what it's like to leave a job, as you know, in the chapter of fired 1, 2, 3, whatever. I like the chapter that we talk about. All the times I got fired.
The chapter titles are totally drafts right now, so they're all up for.
Is
there one the one you love the most so far is First Date, First Week, or we're not sure what it's going to be called, but it's basically.
I think that catches First Date, First Wake, and it's chapter 1, which is fitting. So it sets the tone.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was interesting because you actually did. So as I was reading this weekend, I was going through this, and let's go through the process of the book because I think that it's for all intents and purposes it's my book with my name on it, but this is a labor of love of yours, and you've captured, in essence, you've captured someone that does okay with speaking, and you've put it into writing, and collectively we've put these series of stories together, and we've put together the Grace model. So it's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of by design, but we've come up with the book of the essential elements living your. Now this is the piece of the book that I had this epiphany. I haven't even talked to you about this, but someone had asked me something this weekend about BeAuSm, and it started, and we talked about the start of BeAuSm, and the idea was originally it was supposed to be a book, and when BeAuSm launched in 2018. The idea was BeAuSm, the essential elements to kicking ass. And I was stuck on that for 5 years. And
it's right there on the shirt.
Yeah. So it's probably, So, and probably got to change that. Probably got to change it from the trademark, or maybe we got to keep it. it's still to be determined, but the reality of it was that was going to be the title of the book. And the original design was I was going to share my experience and how to kick ass at life. Mm-hmm. And in 2018, it was just a different time. It was, things were good. I had a good job. I was working I helped grow a company that was, from zero, from a handful of employees to, closing in on 500 employees to $100 million in business, the de facto standard user of the software in the industry we were in. Life was pretty good from all intents and purposes. Cheated death a couple times, had paddled a giant pumpkin, was going to attempt to climb a 14er. It was all these different pieces of my life mm-hmm. that some people wanted me to share in this book to give people insight and understanding. And then 2020 hit. It's actually 4 years and 1 day ago, I got fired from that job and that I was so proud of in 2018. And I probably should have left. Self-reflection, I sit here and go, and I should have left. I wasn't, my heart wasn't in it anymore. It changed in design and everything else, but I lost my job. Arguably had some issues in my head, as others did. And I think mental health awareness and everything else, 2020, 2021 became real, right? It became something. And that's where I came up with You Are Awesome. And I'm like, let's just write a book about you being awesome. Let's just tell other people's mm-hmm. stories and make this work. And then, fast forward to Miramichi, February of last year, sitting in the lobby of the hotel, mind mapping this idea of You Are Awesome. Mm-hmm. And the reality was we were putting this together, probably didn't realize it all at the time, but we were putting this together, which is a combination of the two. Mm. It's being awesome, living your legacy with grace, gratitude, resilience, action, consistency, and empowerment, but being awesome because of the people that you have in your life and the experiences that you have. And this has knocked it out of the park. Like, this is like the stuff that's been captured like so far. It's amazing. And I just sit here and I read it. I'm like, I can't believe,
this is my life.
I can't believe this is my life, right? I can't believe this is my life. Like, as it's captured. And I mean, there's stories. Well, first date, first wake was 32, 33 years ago. Yeah. Like, there's stories in here that are, 25, 30 years old. And there's stories in here that haven't even been written yet because right. the result of the action of what happened hasn't happened yet. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Which is just really cool.
Well, and I think for people who know you, they've heard you speak. Some people have heard you speak multiple times.
Yeah.
In your audience, in your industries, but there's stories that they have never heard before in the book, which is good. A lot of them.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, and I think it was exciting for you too to like kind of see the chronology. Yeah. Of some of these events and putting it all into place. It's kind of cool.
It's been I've shared this with you a couple times. There's a couple in here that I've told the story 100 times. I've stood on stage and I've told the story, but reading it on paper once is just like, whoa, mm-hmm. this explains a lot, or it hurts, or it's hard, or
it's different.
Yeah, it's very different. And I think what's great about this is, I think whether you're someone that knows me for 50 years mm-hmm. or you've never met me, I think that anyone that reads this book can get something out of it that can get them maybe to just realize or understand more how they've become themselves, who they are. Yeah. Do they like themselves or not? Because in here I talk about, like, this is reality. I wear a shirt that says BeAuSm every day. First paragraph's like, I know I'm not always awesome. And there were some dark days.
Yeah.
And I continue to have dark days. Like, I'm not, most people that do what I do paint a picture of how amazing life is, and it is, but they paint it like life is amazing every day, and it's not. No. It's hard. This is a Monday morning. We've had guests that aren't able to join us. You've got to get out of here in a few minutes. I've got a pile of stuff a mile high. I've got stress like nothing else, and we're just coming off of a long weekend of being thankful for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right. That's just what life is. But if you look at some of these things and you look at some of these stories and you go, wow, this is pretty cool, and this is what I can do and change make things better. And last week I'm just looking at this thing with nothing is guaranteed, which was last week was tough. I mean, that was the 2-year anniversary of my grandmother Lola passing away, and it's a great it's a great title. Nothing is guaranteed. I used to often talk about grumpier old men. You see that movie? You ever see Grumpy Old Man? And
I've seen the first one.
So the second one, the father, who's the eldest, he's sitting by the lake and he's sipping on a beer in the morning, smoking a cigarette, and they got like a old car bench seat. And the son comes and sits down. I can't remember the two actors, two older guys. The guy that was in Bad News Bears, the coach, and I can't remember the other guy. But in any case, he sits down with his father, and the father's like, every morning I have a pound of bacon, and then I drink a 6-pack of beer, and I smoke a pack of cigarettes, and da-da-da-da. And he goes, I'm starting to think God just forgot about me, right? And that's what I thought about Lola forever. I was like, I mean, she was 5 days short of 100.5. And up until, she had a stroke sweeping a deck, getting ready for a party. Like, that's pretty...
It's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. Like, I sit here and go, if there's a way to go, Lola figured it out.
Yeah, she did.
But, I was, as old as she was, and as long as she had lived, I honestly felt that she was going to live forever, and God had just forgotten her. And reading the story, and the Macklemore song that came on, and all that stuff that just...
Well, I think sometimes you read these kind of books, and you're like, it's too perfect, right? And nobody's life is like that. We're not going to strip out all the bad stuff. I mean, every story is almost like it's like a life lesson, right?
Yeah.
And those are the books people can resonate with.
Yeah.
Who can see that you're successful, but you struggle every day.
Far from perfect. Yes. Yeah. It is not essential. It's not essential elements to kicking ass as far as, and that's what it was. And that's the beauty of how this has come about was, I don't believe I believe the idea was right originally. I don't believe the execution would have been right. And I think that writing the book as I originally had hoped and intended, and even a second thinking about You Are Awesome, I don't think it would get the impact and the effect that this will have. I mean, it's just so much cool stuff. Thanks for listening to another episode of the BeAuSm Podcast. If you are enjoying our episodes, please give us a 5-star rating review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews do make a difference in helping us get more exposure, more listeners, as well as giving people an insight and understanding as to what they could expect when they listen to our episodes. Thanks again, and you are awesome. And what's amazing is, like, the stories, I've probably told you 500 different examples and stories. Like Ed Rossich, who's in here a couple of times, he's like, you're the only person that makes best friends with the Uber driver. Like, I'm sure they call you like after your ride, but you've worked on and kind of drilled into certain ones that I think I think these are all the right stories. Like, how did you pick? Right now, there's 33, looks like 33 or 32 chapters. Yeah. Like, how you picked the 32 from talking every day, notes and videos and all the stuff is, like, how'd you do that? Like,
I think a lot of it was just going back through the notes and taking a story, and I would just start playing around with it. Yeah. And if I didn't get the feeling right, like pretty quickly, like I was forcing it, I would just put it aside because there's so many good stories. Yeah. So some of these just resonated with me personally. Yeah. And I think that's if you were the writer, you would have gone through a similar process where you would have been like, this what are we getting out of this story? There's nothing we're not learning anything, or it's so boom, that goes off to the other pile.
Yeah, it's a good story, but there isn't a learning lesson.
Yes, exactly. And you have a lot of good stories like that. So for me, it was just like, if it hit home with me, then I kept it in there. Yeah. But like, even the silly ones, there's like, I try to keep it light. Like, there's one on Steve the Jerk.
I was just going to say that. I was like, I was going to be like, how you made a chapter with Steve the Jerk is amazing. And it's a great story. Yeah. Like, it was, and God rest Steve the Jerk, or R.I.P. Steve. He was Coyote's meal one day, sadly, earlier this year. But how crazy was that I was telling the story of how I was comforting Steve the Jerk and like telling him don't let the bastards grind you down.
Right.
But it's true. And it was like, but there I am talking to a rooster, trying to build up his confidence. And that's a chapter. And that's rooster, person, whatever.
Yeah.
People need to know that, because, people will grind you down if you let them. And that was a life learning lesson that my friend Scott Carpenter told me about. That's going to be in here. So,
right. And there's long stories and there's short stories. So I definitely wanted to blend in some short stories as well.
Yeah. No, and that's what I found. Like, there was where was the one? I guess it's the 1 Second of Hope, the 28.
Oh yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, that's Angela. No, is that the
yeah,
the airline attendant?
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah,
because that was just me. I think that's really kind of the cool part of this whole thing is, you captured stuff that I didn't even think were, like, I would just call you and just be like, you won't believe what just happened.
Yeah.
I'm on this plane and here I am, and the flight attendant comes on, and it's been a tough day, and she talks about how long we could survive without food, and how long we could survive without water, and how long we could survive without hope. And the chapter is amazing. It captures.
Thank you.
It captures that moment where I was sitting on this flight, coming home and thinking about a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And here this woman I've never met, don't know, that 100+ flights a year I sit on, 99 of them they tell you how to buckle up and where the exit is and all that other stuff. And she just closes out with, that saying, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, just for spoiler alert for the people listening, this isn't a book about how awesome Josh is.
Oh no,
right? This is about the people in his life that he's encountered in his travels that have done awesome things.
Yep.
And we talked about you are awesome versus BeAuSm, but in order to think of yourself as, you have to be awesome. If you can do anything, be awesome. When you do awesome things for other people, then you become awesome.
Yep.
And your confidence grows and things like that. So
it's
definitely not a book about Josh's greatest hits and everything that he's done. So I want to put that out there right away.
Oh yeah, no, I think that there's lots of people that I've had relationships with in the past that are chomping at the book to read this story and chop it up, thinking that I just talk about myself and the whole thing. And no, I'm far from awesome. I'm far from awesome. That's the thing. I think all of us we're all a work in progress, right? And we're all just ordinary people. It doesn't matter who you are. We're ordinary people. We have extraordinary opportunity, and what we choose to do with it, and what we focus our effort on, right? Is where it all comes into play. And it's a work in progress. I had Caroline and Heather have become like family to us, but they came into our lives in 2015 when our house was destroyed by the polar vortex, and they're painting. They're painters by trade, but they're unbelievable carpenters, and there's nothing they can't do. Tile, they can do. Everything. They're amazing. So they were over last week getting ready for Thanksgiving, helping with some touch-up painting because I'm an awful painter. And I was telling them about the Spartan race and how we raised money for holidays for the heroes, and we're doing this. And they were like, "Of course you did." Right. Yeah. And because they've known me for a long time. And I was like, "Oh yeah." And they of course you would do something that was good on top of something that's good for yourself. And I was like, well, if you want to do something, you got to make it bigger than yourself, and you've got to kind of figure these things out. I didn't do it. I did it as a self-serving reason for me. It was great. And we helped fly active military home. And I want to continue to support that organization. But in the reality was, I needed to do something like that, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone through with the challenge, right? And totally. But we're always working to get better. If we're always willing to work to get better, then we can always wake up with an awesome mindset and figure it out. And
it's living your life with grace. Legacies aren't built in one event, one circumstance. Legacies are built over a lifetime. And that's what we're trying to say here is these are what we think are the key elements, or these are the key elements in your experience,
right,
that have helped you live your legacy, and it's going to help other people live their legacy.
Yeah. Well, Adam and I
maybe.
were getting morbid before you got here, because you're talking about the book. We're talking about March 13th and having an event. I'm like, because we have, as we were talking in Easton, we have very limited meeting space. Like we have Oak Saints Memorial Hall, we've got the library, we've got Stonehill College, we've got the auditorium at the high school. The Easton Country Club doesn't have events anymore. Like it's so very kind of limited. And I said, Adam, it's like trying to think of March 13th kind of as like my wake. And he's like, what do you mean you're thinking of as your wake? I'm like, well, sometimes I think about when I die, who's going to be there? Like, what are they going to say? Right? What are they going to, maybe it goes back to my first date, my first wake. I don't know. But I'm like, I bet if I get the auditorium at the high school that seats 1,500, 15 people will show up. But if I get the Queesit House that seats 20, 200 people will show up. And it's just one of those fact figure things. But as I was thinking about it, it was sitting there and just that, and I relate a lot of this stuff. I go, like, we're all going to die at some point. And very rarely when you die does someone go, oh, that person was a real jerk. There's a couple, but you got to really screw that up.
Yeah.
But it is, when you think about it, and I've done a couple of eulogies, when you look at the people that really set out in your life that made a huge difference, there's no lack of stories. There's just one after the other, after the other, after the other, the impact. There's one maybe crucial story of like that difference that someone made.
Yeah.
Right. That, and it's not in here and we haven't talked about it. My principal, Duncan Oliver, I was in a really bad place in high school. I was a delinquent. I was dealing with personal difficulties with my family element. I had accumulated enough detentions that I had to go to school I had to go after school every day for the rest of my life. And I wrote a goodbye note to my parents. I went to school that morning. I took my skateboard, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm fairly confident. First time I'm ever going to really say this publicly. I'm fairly confident I was going to kill myself that day. I'm fairly confident that I was in a point at 16 or 17 years old where I wanted to end my life. Like I felt like a complete failure. I don't know why I'm going to the story, but it's just stuck out as something.
It's Adam's fault.
And, this was a couple months into my sophomore year in high school or junior year in high school. And here I am at this point in my life where I feel I can't get any lower. And my mother called, nervous and worried. I didn't tell her what I was going to do. I just said, I'm leaving for a while. I didn't have any money. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I'm leaving for a while. And I'll let you know that I'm safe and I'm okay and whatever. And my mother called the school. Duncan Oliver came and got me, the principal at the time, brought me down to his office and talked to me. And he talked to me like I was a human. He talked to me like he wanted to hear what was going on. And I told him, and I shared how I felt, and I talked to him about what a failure I was, and I told him all these things, and that I didn't want to be this person. I didn't like being this person. And he went so far as he lived in Sharon, opposite direction of my house, the furthest part away. I'll never forget. He drove this little old Escort, and he took it upon himself to drive me home that day. And he drove me home to make sure I got home safe. And as he was driving me home, he said, now every day after school, instead of detention, you're going to come to my office and we're going to do your homework and we're going to do your work. And we're going to make sure you get through this stuff.
You never told me that story.
And it was huge. Yeah. And took me 20 some odd years to call him and thank him. That was that. But he did probably 100 things up to that point. But that was that crucial ignition of, this is why this person means so much to my life, because he probably saved it.
Yeah.
And that's like, when I look at things, I try to look at all of the actions that lead up to this. Like, this book is going to be huge. This is going to be probably one of the greatest things for both of us. But there've been 500, 600 different reflection points of stories of things that you and I have had that make it what this is going to be.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to remember. Everything's not always clearly defined as, win or lose, right? It's not, this thing is going to make you win or lose. It's like a football game. One of the things, you like him or hate him, Bill Belichick, he would always tell you, you never blame one play on a loss.
Right.
It's a series of lots of plays.
Yeah, totally.
So,
but that's we might have to revisit that story. That's a pretty important one.
Yeah, I
mean, that's the thing. This happens
every
every day.
You're gonna have to have a second book or third.
No, but it's like every day there's a new story. So it's like, sometimes these things come out
this
of
stuff rattles
conversations.
This stuff rattles my brain pretty good. Like you start thinking about, what got you here and how you got to this place, and it's we talk about my professional career. I mean, this is a lot on, this is a great leadership book, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a great book for people that want to become effective leaders in business, being more human.
Sure.
And one of the things that I talk about is we're very much today in a world where we need to meet people where they're at, and we don't need to expect them to meet us where we're at just because we're a boss or something else. You're going to get a lot more effective result if you start to figure out where people are at. And I learned that through Montessori learning program, without grades and all that other stuff. And they put out some smart kids. So
sure do.
But yeah, no, that story just popped up in my brain. So now we've got a chapter 34. Now look at that. Now I got another chapter to add up.
I think at the end of the day, there's 5 elements. So there's a little bit over 40 chapters total, and as well as an action plan at the end for people who want to try to start making some small changes in their lives.
Yeah. And that's all it is. Like when we think about things, I think you asked me a question about something a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." I mean, it's an easy saying. It's if we can just try to improve ourselves just a little bit, and I'm far from figured this stuff out. There's days I feel like I've improved, like get 1% better. Every day is a saying that goes on. And I feel like some days I'll do 1% better for 3 or 4 days, and I'll get 30% worse on the back end.
Right.
But you got to just pick yourself back up, and you can start over again.
I mean, literally everything we're talking about right now, any kind of goal setting you want to do, you need all the elements.
Yeah.
You need somebody to empower you or be empowered yourself.
Yep.
You have to be consistent.
Yep.
Right. You have to feel the gratitude. I mean, all these things are just, it's common sense.
Yeah. Well, but
it's not.
Well, we don't realize that we're doing it, experiencing, or providing it when we're in it, right? When we're doing these things. I mean, I do with my talks only because I've made it imperative with everything that I do in business specifically, more specifically, showing gratitude up front and in the back of all my meetings and talks. So I always say thank you up front, and it's funny because that ASBO International general session, one of the caveats was I had to have 7 of their slides that urge people to download the app and do all this stuff. So I sprinkled them all in, and it had to be done in the front, 5 or 10 minutes. So I did it, and I incorporated some of my stories. I had my young new sales guy, Nick, come up and do a handstand. And so then the slide that comes up with my name and the picture of me, and I'm like, and now on to my presentation. And I say thank you, and the place just went nuts because they thought that was all that I had done. But the gratitude piece is probably the one that I know of. But when you're doing something that that you're showing massive resilience in, you're just in the thick of things. You're just trying to keep things going. And I think one of the big ones is a number of the biggest one for me is action. One of the biggest ones for me is action. Because I think that there was a lot of time in my life, and I think you touched on it, where, I had all these great ideas, but I never acted on them. I really didn't act on any. Yeah. I didn't go out on a ledge fully until, I was almost 45 years old. Right. I didn't start BeAuSm until recently. I didn't start K-12 Pros until 2 years ago. And I went from this point of like, this is the world's greatest idea. I'll never forget. I invented. I take credit on this, and Amy can tell you this. 17 years ago, I used to dress button-down shirts all the time. I dressed really, really nice. Not BeAuSm t-shirts everywhere. I would wear button-down collared shirts almost everywhere, and I created a magnetic collar stay.
Interesting.
And it was completely homemade.
Yeah.
Completely
Because
homemade.
it used to bug the crap out of you.
And so I was like, and Amy'd be like, what a great idea this is. You should patent it and do all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Years later, first season of Shark Tank. What do they have?
No.
Magnetic collar stays. And the person's like a multi-millionaire. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God. I had this thing that I was just like, oh, this is a great idea. And I should have acted on it. And there was countless experiences like that.
The Keurig opportunity to to distribute the Keurig filters when it first came
Voss
out.
water. Yep.
Yeah. You at the time you're like, nobody's gonna do that.
Yeah. Who's gonna pay $4 for a cylinder glass bottle of water?
Right.
Like they want, big 5-gallon jug. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And it was per cup. It wasn't Keurig. It was per cup. It was a per cup. Yeah.
Right.
Keurig was just coming out, and I think I did say Keurig, but it was a per cup coffee. It might have ended up being Keurig, but it was the quick. Yeah. It was moving away from the carafe coffee machines.
Well, here's the thing. You tend to speak to a lot of people who are older. The facilities managers are just one part of your audience. Obviously, they're CEOs, but they're older. They're more experienced. Yeah. Yet the lessons are just as valuable. I speak to more young people. Yeah. And my thing is this. Everything we're talking about in this book. Yeah. We're old men, right? You just said you didn't have a real decisive action in your life till you were 45, probably starting BeAuSm.
Yeah. I probably had others. I just didn't notice. I didn't see it.
But if we can get young people to take these lessons and apply them earlier in their life, they don't have to wait until they're 40 or 45 or 50. Yeah. If they can live their life with grace when they're teens and young adults, they're going to kick ass forever.
Right. Well, and that's been the hardest part for me. And I don't know if it's because I have kids, or I don't know where that piece is, but I saw I went and saw your talk that you gave for the high school class for Xaverian at Stonehill this summer. And it was interesting. And maybe it was a stereotype in my brain or something. And I've done a couple of talks with kids, and it was early on in my speaking, and so maybe with the improvement in my messaging, maybe it would be an improvement in the audience. Your audience of kids, like, you could see that they were a captive audience. You could see that they were interested. You could see, and I was like, wow, he's making a statement. He could be making a difference in one of these kids' lives. And I looked at it, and I kind of looked at it with like, wow, I kind of would like to do that someday, but I don't know that my message will work for that. And this book does show that the message does work. And I have seen opportunities and instances where people can go, well, how many kids wake up every morning feeling like I felt that morning that Duncan Oliver drove me home? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
But we don't share that. As adults, we don't tend to share those pieces of our life, those trials and tribulations, those challenges, difficulties. I have that problem with my own kids, sharing with and that's again, you probably had it with your kids. It's like your kids don't realize that you were 15 once or 17 once or went through the stuff. And these kids are going through something completely different. Like, social media has made anxiety and depression and feeling of unwantedness and everything else so much worse for these kids. When we were kids, you go out to the speed bump, fight it out, or you have an argument, or you call a couple of friends and you spread some nastiness. These kids, they put it out on the internet for the world to see this stuff, and these kids are having a hard time. So that part I can't wrap my head around, but the rest of it, was going through this stuff, absolutely.
No, it's 100% built for young people as well, because our habits are already ingrained in us. We can change them. Yeah. But it'll be easier for them to make these adjustments earlier in life. Yeah. Yeah.
No, this is exciting. This is from the business standpoint for BeAuSm. I think that I've already told you 2025 is going to be a phenomenal year for us. It's going to be a huge year. It's going to be a breakout year. We got 2 minutes to give or take with Adam's cutting and pasting of everything. Once again, thank you, Adam. We've missed you, buddy. We're going to do. I think Adam and I are going to do an episode on the Spartan race, because he was with me the whole way with the cameras.
Oh,
and
that video was outstanding.
Oh,
too.
It was unbelievable, right? I mean, just great stuff.
Yeah,
but,
you definitely should do. You haven't done one on the post race?
No. I think that's what we're going to do this afternoon.
Because we still have to write that chapter.
Yes.
So I could just listen to the podcast.
Bingo, Adam, you're on next after this. So, but let's talk about you for a minute, because this 2024 was an exciting year for you, because you took some action.
Yep.
You've and this is the other piece to book writing, and we could do a whole book. We were going to self-publish.
Yeah.
We were going to potentially go the publishing route, and you're going to help me with that. You've been instrumental in collecting and putting the words and on paper and organization and everything else. You're lights out, amazing at doing all that stuff. But this year you decided you're going to take action. Mm-hmm. Your passion, your dream, your everything is writing. More importantly, helping other people. Yeah. So you've created a publishing.
I did.
A publishing
company.
So
a publishing house.
A publishing house.
Yes, it's called Bellarmine Publishing.
Yeah.
And Bellarmine is the name of the mansion on Fairfield University's campus. It's like the admissions. It used to be the admissions office, but long story short, Bellarmine Hall is where I got engaged to my wife, Colleen. Mm-hmm. And when I was president of the student body, I was inaugurated there. So it's a very special building on campus. It's the highest point on the campus.
Yeah.
Beautiful spot. And so I thought that would be a good name for my company, Bellarmine Publishing. So yeah, you're my first publishing client.
Yep.
And I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
No, I am so grateful for the honor. I'm excited for March 13th. I can't wait to see the other books that are going to come out of this. I'm going to be able to say, I remember when you just got started and you've got all of these.
Yeah.
And we don't care if we're a bestseller. We do want to be a bestseller, but we want to be a bestseller with a reason. We're going to go after making a difference with this book and doing things. And so if it becomes ribbon or whatever, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too, just as long as people get something out of it and makes a difference, and excited about that. So, and last tidbit, I grew up less than 2 miles away from where you proposed in beautiful Bridgeport.
That's right. Another small world.
Exactly. A lot of relationship there. But, well, I got to get back to work on my chapters. You got to get back to work on your stuff today. Adam, once again, thank you for another episode hosted here at ECAT Studios. Mark it down, write it down. Charlie Brown, March 13, 2025.
If they want to go to the website,
go to BeAuSm.com.
They can register or submit your email to be the first to know when it comes out.
Yep, pre-release and all that fun stuff. And I think stuff's going to be coming in hot and heavy end of December, beginning of January. You'll start to see a lot more in promotion and be on other podcasts. And can't thank everybody that's listening to this podcast, that's purchased merchandise, that's provided words of encouragement, that's a part of the story. There's people that don't even know they're going to be a part of the story until they get the release forms here shortly to make sure that we can use their names. We are going to use all real names with 1 or 2 exceptions. Yes. Either the person has passed or a sensitive one. My first date, my first wake. We're going to keep names out of that one. But it was a good outcome. It wasn't like it was because it was a bad outcome. So. But thank you for everything everyone has done to keep this going now 6.5 years. We appreciate it. Can't wait for another episode. And Adam's going to get in the hot seat next. So next week's episode will be me and Adam talking Spartan races. In the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of BeAuSm. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.